Okay, so the second one is the more dramatic expansion and contraction. We've seen already some expansion occurring, but this is pushing it to the boundary. So we're thoroughly relaxing very rapidly the whole structure of the paper, laminating it exactly the same as that, but then putting it on the karibari board. So I'll just show you, simple, but with the support of the Lamination, you just need to pull it through a body of water and then blot it on. You can leave it in there for a few minutes if you want to, but okay, so you're using the Lamination as support, so it's not rigid. You need to blot off the excess. So no messing. And when you come to measuring it, you'll probably find that it's quite dramatically expanded, particularly if you've left it in there for a few minutes. Okay, and you do the same for the other. Paste up exactly the same as I did in the first instance and join them together. This time, the grain direction of the paper is running parallel. So that should, if you're working with paper and you want to unroll it, roll it up, have more of a kind of a directional feel about it to match the grain direction is the best method, okay, for that. We tend to match grain direction when we're working with old materials because it's more, the behaviour of the paper is more matched to the original, so it will go with it. But it does mean that you can roll and unroll things if that's part of the aesthetic, or crumpling, or that sort of thing. You probably get a better result with the grain direction running parallel because it's working with itself, not against itself.
And you're not brushing yourself?
Yes, you would. Did exactly the same thing. It's just rather than spraying, I've immersed it, and but exactly the same process. Now I'll show you, rather than waiting for me to go through all the pasting methods. So pretend this is the same grain direction. This is good because any residual adhesive doesn't stick to it either. So is that clear what I'm asking you to do so far? Yeah. I mean, I'll come around and talk to you anyway. So this is, I'm just pretending this is the same grain direction, immersed it in water, then pasted up after blotting, and you've got the same laminate. Okay. And this time we're going to attach it to the karibari drying board, or a wooden board if you have it. A wooden board is not so good because a karibari drying board is a hollow structure. It's exactly the same structure as a shoji screen in a traditional Japanese house. It's made of a cedar in a core, and it's got layers and layers of Japanese paper applied in different directions, different adhesive strengths, about 8 layers on both sides. And then this is persimmon juice that's attached. But you could make, I mean, if you were clever, had a lightweight inner core made. You could use some European papers or some Japanese papers and even coat it with a PVA, to resist things bruising the surface when you remove it. Perhaps we should have something like that in the paper studio.
Yeah.
Right, so what I'm going to do, Kelly's got these a bit wide, but I'm going to attach this to the karibari board using Japanese strips of paper. Now, generally the paper that you attach it to the board is a lighter weight, because if any tensions are going to occur and any splitting, you want it to transfer itself to this strip, which is disposable, as opposed to ripping your object in the centre. So a lighter weight paper, and what we do ideally is put almost 50% of the strip pasted up onto the object and then 50% onto the board. But I'm going to be a little bit less generous, because you'll need quite a lot of space, because this is the object that you're going to use whilst it's on the board to apply your adhesive strips, because it'll be nice and flat and easy to work with, and as it dries it will go back into tension again. Okay, so the strips will go like that. We also have a little tab which we insert. We don't glue this one in, and that goes under there. And when we come to remove it from the board, we just place a spatula under there, and that breaks that seal, rather than cutting, because we can't cut onto a paper board like that. Okay? So, I need to paste these up in preparation. I would keep your object covered, because sometimes it takes a while to paste things up and organise yourself. So keep this nice and flat and underweight so it's not drying out and it's not distorting. So you need to have, it's very important to apply the adhesive quite liberally on this, because if you miss a piece, it can detach from the board and then cause distortions on your artwork. So just make sure. You can see when you paste it up, it goes a darker tone. Again, this is a good method for stretching up a piece of paper before you start drawing onto it. You can use brown paper, but not on a board like that, because it bruises the surface. Okay, right, so with the aid I would take this off then, again, carefully. Sorry. You need a lot of room this time. Board. We need to get quite a lot on, so if you can position them, quite snugly, because I don't have, huge amounts of space. We'll take this and place it on the board. Make sure it's flat. If it's not flat, brush it through again with a brush. Now, the best way of picking up Japanese strips like this is just lift it on your fingers and then take sometimes have a brush, a dry brush, just to smooth that. Smooth that down. Get your tab. Let's place that. It's very therapeutic doing lining. You know, when you're doing it on your own, you get into the zone, as you would say. Be careful when you're stretching over. I would always tell the students to rotate it, but with something small like this, as long as you're aware of your physicality with the object, then it's fine. Okay, make sure that you clamp this down. There's always something you forget. Students have run off with all of my tools. I don't know where they are. I haven't got one decent pair of tweezers here at all. Just lift that up with a bone folder and then carefully insert a straw underneath. Carefully you don't push it. It's raising up. Make sure you tamp that down. That just raises it slightly off the surface so it increases the drying rate. Okay. And then that can be air dried fairly rapidly. If you wanted to control the rate of evaporation, and again it will dry out along the edges first, then you could cover it or put it in a tent of some sort to slow dry it. But I think for this workshop we'll rapidly dry it, just to see what the expansion and contraction rates are like. They may well ping off because this is expanded quite a lot. So we'll see how that reacts. Okay.
So that's because it will contract again as it
Contract,
dries,
yes,
and then there's tension in the tape.
Yeah, then if you haven't got the adhesive right and that tamped down, then it will release and then start buckling the edges and even further. Okay? So, they're the two assignments then today. And if we get through that, then we can progress on to other bits and pieces. But certainly it would be good to get these two finished today. And hopefully by the end of the day we can also get the painted strips of, when this is dry, of different adhesives. Okay, but they have to be dry in order before you add those, otherwise you won't get the full extent of the coating. Okay? So, do you want to have a cup of coffee now, I think? Because you've had...
I know I did mention this before, but because of the nature of the workshop, Jane is prepared for five.
Yes, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
So what I suggest is that Lionel, if you could double up with Daksha, because Daksha's going this afternoon anyway. I'm thinking about the people who join
sure.
sort of, you know, later. Lizzie, if you could join up with Jill, and Claire, you join up with me. Yeah, is that okay?
Is that
And then
okay?
we've got enough space for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. That you can spread out onto this table as well. So the instruction sheets are there, which should help you fill in the bits and pieces, but I'll come round regularly, and if you've got any questions or struggling with anything, then of course just give me a shout. But I think this will get you used to working with paper, and also it's interesting to note the expansion and contraction of you know, a standard Somerset paper that is used very regularly for printing and drawing.
Is that a cotton paper?
Yes, yeah. Cotton linters as opposed to cotton rag.
Okay.
So it's much softer, easily bruise the surface because it's internally sized and quite softly sized. They are designed very specifically for printmaking, except intaglio particularly well. But you know, you can use these papers, and you can use different coatings on it and then draw or paint or set the surface however you want.